Welcome to episode 255 of Freshly Grounded. This episode is with Abdullah Majid. I met Abdullah, actually we would have met some years back. Abdullah has been a volunteer at every single one of our Freshly Grounded events and done a phenomenal job. And we do speak a bit about that in this episode. But I met with Abdullah about 2 months ago. We went for a coffee. And as we went for a coffee, we just got talking about anything and everything. We're just catching up, and I just kind of wanted to show my thanks for, being at all of the events and being a long-term supporter of Freshly Grounded. And we ended up speaking about climate change. And Abdullah said that climate change is something that he's passionate about. And I said, well, I don't really understand it. And so I asked him to kind of, quote unquote, explain it to me like I'm five. And he did. And I always thought to myself, I'd love to have had that conversation on the podcast, because maybe there are others like me who are naive, but probably 2021, there's not an excuse for it. And so I understood climate change a lot more after that conversation. And if there's anybody else out there who perhaps just puts it to the back of their head, I hope that this small introduction to climate, understanding climate change, will be a nice introduction. And then we ended up speaking and having a bit of a chat about the Freshly Grounded events. And then towards the end, to be honest, we were just speaking about football. So it's a nice kind of all-rounder episode. It's one of those ones you're just chilling back, driving on the motorway, and you just want to listen to a couple of brothers having a natter. And we speak about all types of things, but something that I think will be a great benefit, hopefully, to, like I said, those people who perhaps are not as well equipped with understanding climate change like myself. And with that being said, this is episode 255, Freshly Grounded. Enjoy. And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast.
Well, it's not exactly brand new anymore, is it?
Welcome to Freshly Grounded, the podcast.
That's better.
Created by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded.
After that bit.
Created by
After that bit.
best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
Thank you for the hot chocolate, bro.
No worries, man.
It's lovely. I've never had. This is my first ever time having a hot chocolate on the podcast.
I was a bit surprised, I'll be honest, because I was in Costa.
Yeah.
I thought our face was going to ask me to grab him a coffee.
Yeah.
No problem. Then it's like small hot chocolate. What?
Yeah, small hot
What?
chocolate. Very specific, isn't it, as well? I'm always very specific. I had 2 coffees today, and I'm thinking that 3 is a bit much. So
I had decaf when I was in Costa.
do you drink decaf?
Only if it's like past 6 o'clock and I want to go sleep, like at a reasonable time, then I'll have decaf.
I drink decaf, and everyone makes fun of me for drinking decaf.
You have to treat your body right, man. You can't, like, you need your sleep.
Yeah.
So caffeine too late will mess up with your sleep. So
I don't drink decaf because I don't want to sleep. Because I want to sleep, sorry. I will just drink it because of more of the anxiety thing. Like, have you ever had too much coffee and then had anxiety?
I haven't, but I know people say anxiety, like coffee gives them anxiety. So what do you mean by that? Because I can't picture it at all.
So it's like it gives you the shakes.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Have you ever had the shakes from coffee?
If I say I've had like 4 coffees in a day, then yeah, it starts to get a bit like trembly, shaky.
Yeah. And then like I start feeling a bit nervous, and shaky, and and you feel horrible.
Right.
You just like whatever this is in my system, just I want to get it out because I just feel nervous and shaky for some really odd reason. So I can't have, but that isn't 3 coffees for me because that's like maybe 4. 4 because I've had 3 coffees in a day. If I have to, I do, but 4 I haven't.
Right.
That was such a broken sentence, isn't it?
I got what you mean, bro. I got what you mean. Yeah.
So I actually messaged you earlier in the week, and for those listening, and I said, Abdullah, would you like to come on the podcast and speak about climate change? And you were obviously reluctant because you being the humble self that you are, said that you didn't want to do it injustice and stuff like that because you're no expert on climate change and stuff like that. But I think you're being very humble because we obviously, when we met for coffee a few weeks ago, gosh, was it August now?
Yeah.
Wow, time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, man.
When we met for a coffee, I think naturally we started speaking about that, and I was really intrigued. And I literally said to you, "Can you explain to me like on 5 climate change?" Because
I remember that.
I don't actually understand it, or I didn't, and I actually now only understand it a bit better because of the conversation I had with you, which is so important because conversations are so important.
Yeah.
And some people might be listening to this episode right now and saying, "Oh, they're talking about climate change. That is so boring." But I urge you guys to listen on because it's something. It's a conversation. Look, I would put myself in the minority field by saying that I tend to get like bored by the like discussion of climate change because it doesn't sound like anything that would, you know, boost my dopamine levels by having that conversation, right? And I would expect, because our audience at Freshly Grounded are quite mature, that the majority, you know, would be interested in this kind of conversation. But if any of you are like me and were ignorant, arrogant, and thought that it's a conversation that's like boring, doesn't need to be had, I urge you to listen on, because when I had a conversation with Abdullah about it, I was just so intrigued, and it made me really wake up and understand, you know, why climate change is being spoken about a lot more. The first question I suppose I had when I spoke to you was something like, what is climate change, and why are people speaking about it so much? And it seems to be more now than ever before, especially more this week because of COP26, but
course, yeah.
More now than ever before. At least that's what it feels like.
Yeah. So in essence, climate change is just the increase in global average temperatures, right? So if you think about all the temperatures of all the countries around the world, generally the trend of the last 250 years has been that the Earth is steadily warming up. And that has knock-on effects for kind of weather patterns and the natural balance of our, you know, of our climate, of our planet. And so maybe in the past, these things were not mentioned as much because, well, I think one, the science was maybe lacking. There wasn't so much kind of information out there, and there was no Google, right? You couldn't just search, you know, climate change and have all the information there. So it was restricted to, say, like the academic circles of it was like, if you know, you know. If you're involved in that space, then you will know about climate change and you can follow the data and follow it. And so like the kind of layman, the normal person, they wouldn't have known much about it, right? But I think now, because of the technological progress, and we have kind of Google, we have information that, you know, disseminates down to us, it's a lot easier for us to kind of follow. And now, obviously, we've seen kind of impacts climate change has had around the world. We're seeing, you know, unprecedented events happening every month now, and they're happening a lot more destructive than they were in the past.
Like what? What do you mean by that?
So let's say wildfires in California, in Siberia, record temperatures in, you know, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest. You know, these are never before seen temperatures that are being broken every single year, and they're being reported on, and now we're seeing it in the media. And we know that it's being linked to climate change because climate scientists have been talking about this for over 50 years now. And so we know that they were tracking it. We know that they were warning it was coming. And so only now are we saying, okay, we need to take action.
And why is it bad? Is it because, like, for example, hot temperature, trees are burning, we need trees for oxygen, and other commodities like paper and stuff like that? Is it, or is that just like one of the very small reasons?
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons. So like obviously naturally that would be one. So if we have wildfires, you have trees that burn, and trees, you know, provide us with oxygen. So naturally less oxygen, right?
Right.
So that'd be one thing. Another thing, you would obviously heard about rising sea levels, correct?
Yes.
So with rising sea levels, you see a lot of people that live around coastal areas. Around 600 million estimate to live on the coast, right? And 2.4 billion within 60 miles of the coast. So if sea levels rise and these places go completely underwater, that's a lot of people that are affected.
Fine.
And so these things are kind of linked, that they'll go on to have knock-on effects of, you know, maybe not our lives, but certainly our children's lives and their children's lives. And it will fuel kind of more panic, right? So like, if you remember back to the pandemic when things kicked off, right? Especially in the UK, no one could get flour, like, as an example, because everyone was buying, like, stockpiling flour and toilet paper and all these things. And so imagine that again in 50 years' time, but with a lot more people, a lot more density, because people have had to move from their towns, their cities, which are now underwater, and they've had to move to the big cities. So population density is a lot more, general resource scarcity is a lot more. You have to have more people competing for food, more people competing for water. And so that puts extra pressures on society, extra pressures on hospital systems. Diseases spread a lot more when people are densely populated, right? And so, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Imagine how it will be in 50 years if, let's say, there are now 10 times as many people living in the same space, as an example, because of climate migration and people becoming climate refugees.
And what are the top causes for? What are the top causes for climate change? Is that the right way of asking the question?
No, I see what you mean. So like the main.
What would be the right way of asking it?
So what would be the main driver of climate change? What's been like the main reason?
Right.
The main cause of climate change. So we look back to say the Industrial Revolution when that happened 250 years ago.
Yep.
We burned a lot of coal, a lot of oil, a lot of natural gas since that time, right? And burning these fossil fuels releases greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane. And what these do is they're very, very good at trapping heat in our atmosphere, which is bad.
Of course.
And so that contributes to the general warming of the atmosphere. And like we said, that has knock-on effects to our climate. But not only that, the increases in carbon dioxide, right? Effectively, carbon dioxide can be absorbed in two ways. And one way is through the oceans. And so the oceans, over the last 200, 300 years, have absorbed most of our CO2, which is fine because we haven't felt the effects. But now we're actually starting to see the effects because oceans are becoming more acidic because of the CO2 they've absorbed. And now you see coral reefs being bleached, right? You've seen the pictures of corals turning white. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about the absolute bottom of the food chain, the small, fish and organisms that eat these coral reefs, they don't have any food anymore. And so you go one step up the food chain, and now those animals that eat those small organisms are running out of their food supply. And you keep going all the way back up until it reaches humans, right? And we're at the top of the food chain. And now all of a sudden, we can't eat those fish that we need. And like we said, a lot of people live in coastal areas. And so that greatly affects a lot of people's, way of living.
Yeah, on the topic of the sea, I was really embarrassed to mention that one of the things that really woke me up was when Tim Humble was speaking about this, and he said that when you, for example, throw plastic into the sea and the plastic is consumed, or you consume a lot of plastic, and plastic is consumed by the fish, when you eat that fish, there's all of the bits of plastic basically still in the fish. Yep. And so it is literally negatively affecting you. So, and that's when it hit me, which is, it sounds like such a silly thing to say because it's so self-obnoxious, like, oh, now I understand the causal reaction and why it affects me, I'll stop using as much plastic. But that is what happened to me. I thought, oh wow, by throwing away plastic, not recycling plastic, and I'm still so bad at it. I'm literally drinking coffee as we speak with podcast from a coffee cup. So I'm not preaching here, but it did wake me up a bit. And I started to understand that, it is going back in to you and it's going to affect your health and stuff like that. And I suppose the other obvious thing that comes to mind is, well, why should a Muslim care about this? Because we understand and believe in the qadr, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we have bigger fish to fry, excuse the pun, like for example, like understanding Tawheed and stuff like that. But when you just sit and think about it for a second, you understand that as a Muslim you have to care about your environment, about other people, about all creation, and about the various narrations that we know of, like for example the woman who fed the dog, and then so many other narrations from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he cared so much about the creation and other people and the environment and stuff like that. So I suppose that fixes that. But does that frustrate you if people say, well, we're like, it's too big of a problem, like we can't necessarily fix it, one individual person, one individual change is not really going to make a big deal?
Yeah, in ways definitely, because it almost just passes the buck on to the next person, right? So if you say, oh, I can't fix it, if I make changes in my lifestyle, that's not going to have an effect. Or if I make changes and then the next person doesn't, then, that's not going to have the effect that we intend. But that's the absolute kind of wrong way to think about it. Because of course we know that it needs to happen at a kind of macro level. So the big polluters in terms of like countries, so you think your Americas, your China, India, the big polluters, they do need to make a change and, move towards clean energy and hit their net zero targets and reduce all these kind of emissions, sure. But we as a population need to make lifestyle changes as well. As Muslims, like you said, we know that there are narrations in Hadith that, show the benefits in looking after the world around us and kind of all living things. But we shouldn't think that our efforts don't go unnoticed, right? Because, we're going to be resurrected. We are going to be questioned about everything we did.
Yeah.
And so if we have such a lax attitude of, no, I'm not going to make changes to my lifestyle because I don't think it will have an effect, I think that's really bad. If it's out of ignorance, then that's a little bit more of an excuse. But again, you need to clue yourself up on it because, these are going to be the lives of your kids' kids that are going to be determined by the decisions you make today. And so I think, coming back to the question, you do need to look internally within yourself and say, am I doing the best I can given the information I have? If you know that you can make changes that will positively benefit society and you're choosing not to take them, it says a lot about your kind of mindset, your kind of character and, who you are as a person.
What does it mean when countries and big organizations say that they're trying to reach their net zero target and stuff like that?
And so this is like the big thing happening at COP26 right now. You have all these countries and companies giving pledges of, yes, we want to hit, net zero emissions. So we're not going to produce any more carbon dioxide than we use by, I think the main one is 2050. And for India, it's around 2070, like 20 years later. So effectively what they're saying is they're going to move away from fossil fuels for producing energy, move towards kind of renewable energy, so wind, solar, tidal, etc.
Is that just more expensive? Is that why it's not done now? Or is the technology still evolving?
See, it's a few reasons. Costs have definitely decreased over time. So in this country, 40% of our electricity comes from renewable sources.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really surprising.
You wouldn't have known that,
No.
right? And even though I know we have an energy crisis going on right now, a lot of the companies that you can kind of switch to, they use renewable sources, or they have an option that you can have your electricity produced by renewable sources. So in ways the technology has already progressed, and this is the UK, this is a very developed economy. Maybe in other areas of the world which are still developing, that this technology just isn't there yet. Fair enough, but I think it ties in with a few reasons. One, okay, sure, the technology isn't there. Two, a lot of countries, have assets or are invested in coal, oil and gas. So you think about the big oil producing countries like Russia's, it's not really in their interest to stop producing fossil fuels, which means so much to their economy, and start moving to renewable, right? Because that's going to completely destroy their economy and affect the lives of their citizens. So it's a little bit of a problem for them to figure out, okay, we want to move to net zero, but at the same time, we don't want to completely destroy our economy. And you see what I mean?
There is kind of an argument there, right? Like, for example, is there an argument of bringing up pros and cons and having an economy flourish and weighing out the greater good? I'm speaking without complete knowledge. I'm going to get annihilated here. But is there any argument there or not at all?
Well, in ways, yes. So, like, I was just presenting kind of the arguments that they use for maybe why they don't want to transition to net zero as fast or move towards renewables. But yeah, it's kind of yes and no, because we're all together on this planet, right?
Yeah.
And you can't have a global existential threat of climate change and then try tackle it as individual nations.
Fine.
It needs to be a global collaboration. And I think there needs to be things like COP26 where countries kind of meet and hold each other to account, right? Not everyone will be able to transition as fast as other economies, sure. But you need to help economies out. You need to help other countries out, provide finance to them, provide, expertise to them. And so that way we all as a planet move towards, the goal of conquering climate change.
So when we were speaking a few weeks back, you mentioned that perhaps electric cars aren't yet at this where they should be or could be, in order to be like perhaps like a really effective contributor to like clean energy,
Yeah.
something like that. Why is that?
There's a few reasons there. One, battery capacity. So the kind of mileage you get on an electric car, compared to a petrol or diesel, just not as much. Secondly, alongside with that is there's just not enough charging infrastructure, right? So if you want to do like a really long 200, 300 mile journey, right, you need to charge up a lot, quite a lot of times. But if there's no charging ports on your way, then your journey is going to be even longer, because if you map it out on Google or whatever.
But why does that affect? Isn't that still good? If you take away those elements, you're right. Like it will take you longer on your journey and stuff. But if you take those elements away, is it still not better to drive electric?
Currently, no, because again, like most of our electricity is produced by fossil fuels.
I see.
Correct. And even in the manufacturing process of the cars, a lot of fossil fuels are used. And
Understood. Right.
so presently, the benefits of using electric cars aren't as great as like their potential could be. But in the next few decades, as we kind of improve technology, improve battery technology, improve charging infrastructure, the manufacturing process, and so on, then definitely we'll start to see benefits.
But is it still not better to use an electric car than to use a petrol car though? Because, okay, so for example, you're saying that the production of cars can obviously causes CO2 emissions.
Yep.
But also so would the production of petrol cars. So isn't it better to at least drive electric so that you're not like contributing to petrol and like getting petrol?
Yeah, and in that sense, I can see where you're coming from. So if more people were to adopt electric cars now, right, the demand for petrol would fall. And so you would think that the companies that supply petrol would see that and say, okay, people are demanding less petrol, let's move to alternative sources.
Yeah.
So in that sense, again, you would be right that going to all electric would have a very beneficial impact.
Yeah, because there have been definitely a rise of like companies producing electric cars. And I think most people are now at the thinking, or at least have had the thought of, well, when I get my next car, I'll definitely consider electric. I think like that. I mean, right now, I'm not in the market for a new car, but eventually when I am, I guess one of the thoughts that I will be thinking is, should I go electric?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the UK have said after 2030,
Yeah,
you're not allowed to buy, you're not allowed to make new petrol, diesel cars. A lot of the car companies are estimating that after 2030, they're not, their sales of electric compared to, their sales of electric will greatly outweigh the sales of petrol and diesel. So I think definitely there is that general shift in consumer trends and attitudes to move towards electric, and we all kind of see the phasing out of petrol and diesel.
So should we shift the conversation completely and just relax a bit and speak about something completely...
I was waiting for you to say that.
Let's talk about Freshly Grounded events.
Yes.
It makes sense to speak about those because you have been at both live events, but then also the house show.
Yep.
Is that all of them?
That's all three, yeah.
Yeah. So that's all three shows that we've done live so far. And you've been at all of them as a crew member. How... why? It's interesting because I suppose I would have seen the transition of... Because episode 100 was the first one, and then the most recent one was obviously episode 250. So you've been there from the very start.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always been a fan of Freshly Grounded. I mean, I used to watch your YouTube channel before Freshly Grounded. I remember I joked about Faisal's favourites.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
But, so yeah, I was watching Freshly Grounded from pretty much day one. I loved the kind of the message and the guests and, conversations happening. And I was like, this is something that really resonates with me. The vision, I understand it completely. And so, yeah, I was just watching them. And by that time, I'd finished like A-levels. I'd gone on to uni. And then, episode like 100 was coming close. And I remember seeing a post on the Instagram, which was, we want to do, like you always said throughout the podcast, we want to do a live event for episode 100. It'll be very nice. It'll be, something that we plan to do. I saw the post saying volunteers needed, and I was like, no harm in applying. So me and one of my other friends from Warwick, because we were both fans, we said, let's apply. And we both end up getting, the opportunity to help out.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, we came down from Warwick to London for the event. And yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it was a bit surreal, I'll be honest, because we saw kind of you live for the first time as opposed to on the screen. We saw Sam, who is, like I thought I was tall, but Sam
He's
is
humongous, yeah.
humongous, yeah. And then I think Abdul Hakim was there. So like seeing and meeting all these guys was just absolutely amazing. And then I thought the event was just, it was so spectacular. It was so kind of, it was so freshly grounded, if you know what I mean. That first live event. And, to me, it has a lot of sentimental value. Like, for you, it must be, even more.
Oh, bro. First of all, it means so much that it has sentimental value to you, because that's so important. I always just want it to feel like a community project, and I want people to feel like ownership over Freshly Grounded. And so that is like music to my ears, for lack of a better term, more than anything else, because that's the kind of feeling that you want to give off with a project, especially with like what our intention was behind why we did Freshly Grounded and stuff. But that day was a massive blur to me, episode 100, because I was very nervous. It was our first live event and stuff. I just wanted to put off an amazing live event, and I wanted it to be fun, and I wanted it to be Freshly Grounded, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I look back at the live events, I'm like, they all sucked. Like, not because they did, but because I'm like, we can do so much better, and now we're like getting our feet wet with it a bit. We're understanding it. I did enjoy the house show, but that's because that's because I had an idea for the vibe of the house show, and it worked out. Like black box theatre, no fancy designs, nothing, intimate small audience, interactive audience who communicate a lot and stuff like that, homely feel, and feeling like you're giving something of value. And so that was fun. But the tour coming up, bro, oh man, the ideas I have for that, I'm really so excited, bro, because I think it's going to be the best yet. Because what I haven't been able to capture with the live events, I think we did it with episode 100, and I think we maybe fell off a bit with Operation Excellence with it. But the idea of like being a variety show, well, the best way I try to explain it to people, which is such a bad way of explaining it, is like the Ant and Dec Saturday Night Takeaway, but a Muslim version. Like, not in the sense that like, we want this and that, but more so as in like going into the audience and being like and finding someone in the audience who we've actually been following their story for 6 months, and we know that they've done so much for their parents during COVID, and then we like gift them like a trip to Umrah, like things like that. Like, that would be a great segment, and it would be so heartwarming, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And that mixed with, of course, maybe you want I don't think I want to do interviews anymore on stage, because I don't think they work. I think I want to keep interviews to house shows. So the idea is that every month or 2 months we do a house show, the same venue that we had it in last time, because it's perfect for it, and it's a live episode of the podcast. So we find a guest that would be good in front of an audience, and that would be the interview version, right? But the actual big events, I don't think interviews work. I think they actually really start killing the vibe. And so rather than interviews, though, I would like keynote speakers. So I'm just letting all the secrets out of the bag here, but I'm really hoping we could potentially get Jamil Qureshi to do a keynote speech at our tour. Because those of you who haven't seen Jamil Qureshi's episode of Freshly Grounded, this guy is a world-leading psychologist. He's worked with five of the world's number one athletes in different fields like cricket, Formula One, and maybe tennis. He actually trained the England cricket team, the England national cricket team, from like a psychology and leadership angle. And so he just understands the brain and leadership and stuff like that. And it was by far one of my favorite episodes of all time of Freshly Grounded. So things like that, I think that's where I see the next step now. Like entertainment, like the beginning of this show that is planned out, it will be hopefully amazing. So entertainment, heartwarming segments, like things that make you laugh, things that make you cry, games like we did before. Like maybe we could do something like Faisal and Sam versus the current events boys on like, you know, something that interacts the crowd. Amazing keynote talks, but everything that's for our audience as well, like our age group. We're very lucky with Freshly Grounded in that our age group, the main core YouTube age group tends to be like 18 to 24, and our core age group is 25 to 34, which I'm so grateful for. And kind of, I guess it makes sense because that's who we are. We're 25. We are in the 25 to 34 category, the people behind the camera, the people in front of the camera. And so I suppose like your audience grows with you, right? But I feel very blessed in that being the audience, because that's a mature audience. And a majority of our audience are like either graduates, or they're in careers, or they're either starting a family now, or they're like looking to start a family now. And all of these things indicate that it's a mature audience. And so I want to make sure I create something. And Freshly Grounded has always been something like me wanting to create something that I would like to see. And I think that's what I would like to see, the kind of event that I just explained.
Yeah, I mean, you've never been short of like amazing ideas.
I appreciate that, man.
No, from the volunteers' perspective, every live event, like we've always been treated so well by you and Kareem, Yusuf, all the staff. You know, we've all felt part of the family, part of the community. You know, we've loved helping out. Like you said, the audience is, you know, passionate. We want to be just as passionate, you know, if not more, really kind of driving the vision of Freshly Grounded, and, you know, feeling like we're helping carry the project. So yeah, I've no doubt the tour will be a great success as well. I want
to do so much more. We actually have put together a list now of anybody and everybody who has worked with us, like a volunteer or an intern and stuff like that. And they're on an Excel document that we put together. Abdullah, who was here a few months ago, put that together for us. And the idea behind that is have everybody's name, email address, and postal address. Did you ever get asked for your postal address?
I don't think so, no.
Fine. I don't know if we've got everyone's postal addresses on there then. I think it was name, email address, and perhaps like anybody's postal address we do have, or something. But we're putting together this Excel sheet, right? And the idea is that every time we release like a product, or even we just like have like spare budget or something, like literally always being grateful to those people who have put something into Freshly Grounded, and just like exporting that list, and like the addresses just get printed, and like we just like ship like something, right? Like for example, and the idea came to me because years ago when I was still in high school, I remember getting something through the post. At the time my phone network was O2, and it was something that came through the post and it had my name on it. And obviously being in school, you don't get many things come in your name. And I opened it, and it was a chocolate bar from O2, and it was just like, just want to say thank you for being a loyal customer. And I was like, that's such an amazing idea. And it was a whole bar of chocolate, not like a Dairy Milk bar. It was like, you know, like the big family size Galaxy bars.
Yeah.
And I thought they've sent that to every single customer. That's crazy. And that, ever since I've done that, I've always thought like, I want to be the giver in that scenario, because that seems like an impossible thing to do, to gift thousands of people a big chocolate bar. That must have cost a decent amount of money, but they did it. And so I would love to be able to get to that point where we can afford to do things like go, oh, let's export that list, and just, or like every time, like the protocol, every time we release, I don't know, a product or something, the protocol is like, it just gets shipped out to like that list. Do you know what I mean? So I wish we could do more. Like I said, I'm so grateful that you said that you guys feel like you're a part of the project and carrying the project, because that's the only, because you, first of all, it's true, you do. But secondly, I always feel like we don't do enough for like the people who contribute to Freshly Grounded. So it's nice to hear that hopefully we haven't like lost all of the like votes of confidence just yet. You know what I mean? Let's talk a bit about you. We sent a form out to get filled out around the time of our last event, I think, and it was like getting to know our volunteers a bit more.
Yeah.
And the idea is that actually contributes to that sheet and stuff like that, so we can start like understanding our volunteers more on a personal level and stuff. And you mentioned some stuff like for example, on that document, it was like, what's your favorite cuisine? And you chose Pakistani food.
Of course.
And I was like, why would he choose Pakistani food? Because he's Pakistani and you can get that at home anyway.
Yeah, but when it's done well, unmatched.
But you can't get that. But can you get good Pakistani food outside?
Of course, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't ever. I always feel like you can. It's never going to be as good as home cooked.
Yeah.
And my favorite cuisine outside is like Pan Asian. Do you like Pan Asian food?
Yeah, it's good food. Yeah.
Pan Asian is very good food, like pad thai.
Yeah.
But then Japanese food is nice, sushi. But all that kind of stuff like woks and stuff I think are really good. Have you been to PF Chang's?
I have, yeah.
PF Chang's is good food.
Yeah, very good food.
Yeah.
Not worth the price though, I don't think.
Yeah, I get. But do you know what, bro? I think in a lot of these places you can spend normal money.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds so weird to say. Like, as in, I think you can very easily overspend in these places.
Yeah.
If you were to be disciplined, you can have great meals in so many places. I'll give you an example. When like early days of marriage, bro, right? We were on tight budgets, or I was on tight budgets, but I really wanted to take my wife out and enjoy marriage and stuff like that. And so what I would do is like we'd go to a restaurant, but then after we would go out to like like a really nice place to have like tea. Because tea in really even the most expensive places is going to be £7. So like I'm saying, if you're on a budget of like a tenner, you can actually still go out and like enjoy like tea in Knightsbridge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we used to do that because I just wanted to still create that environment where it's like nice. So we might go out or even maybe eat at home, but then I'd go out for like have like tea and cake, and it cost £12. But you're going to a place where people spend hundreds on their bills.
I think it's also like when you know what's good, like you can spend, but because I went for the first time, you're just trying things and then you think, oh, that wasn't worth the price because it wasn't that good.
Yeah.
As soon as you know what's good, then you spend the money, then you're like, okay, yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, that's true. I recently found out that, you know, like those, I don't want to like knock anyone's business, to be honest. There's a type of food that I used to really enjoy, right? It's like a pot and you get like noodles in it and stuff like that, right? And I recently looked at their menu and they got like their nutritional information, and like one pot was like 2,000 calories, which is your whole calories for the day.
That's insane.
That doesn't sound right though, does it?
No, you think about it, like
it can't be possible.
Think about like the sauces that you put in those kind of food, right?
Yeah.
They're very high calorie, and you cook like have maybe 2 or 3 sauces that go in the cooking process. So it's probably from that.
That is absurd though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you count calories and stuff like that much?
I used to. So when I was doing gym and stuff, and I was tracking all that stuff, then yeah, I was on MyFitnessPal logging everything. Since I've started work, I've been quite lazy, I'll be honest. So, but generally, I know when I'm overeating and when I'm kind of undereating, and I just kind of stay within my limits.
What is your like? Do you know more than like the average template? Do you know what your amount of calories for the day is for maintenance?
For maintenance, it's a bit higher than average because I'm quite tall as well.
Fine.
So
like 2,700?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
Does that mean that mine would be lower than average because I'm like a bit smaller?
I think it also depends on your weight as well, because you see me, I'm like quite slim as well.
Right.
So if I'm maybe a bit bigger, then I think it would be a bit higher. But
right.
Yeah, I think it's height and weight, and obviously like how much muscle you have compared to how much fat you have as well. So
right now I'm doing 2,200 calories a day.
Is that a deficit
that's
or
deficit?
Yeah.
But I'm finding it very easy to do 2,200, to be honest. And it just goes to show that it's the little choices that you make. That, like, I was driving home the other day from my sister's house, and then as I was driving home, there's a doner kebab shop on my left hand side, and I had calculated my meals for the day, and I knew how much I was having, and so I wasn't hungry. But as I was driving past the doner kebab shop, I was like, I could easily, or if I wasn't trying to keep on top of what I'm eating, I could easily stop here, order myself a doner kebab, go home, eat it, and I wouldn't feel like I've overeaten. I would just feel like, oh, I fancy doner kebab and I got doner kebab. But that would add like 700 calories to my day or whatever, which is absurd, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I think it's good. Like once you can build that discipline, then you can just like start to say no to food. But I think you start to enjoy food a lot more. So like if you're saying no to desserts, because generally you eat a lot of desserts and you're doing this calorie deficit, then when you have dessert, I think you just enjoy it that much more.
Yeah.
And like, you really kind of savor it, rather than just like, constantly snacking and then you're having like biscuits and cakes and all these things.
Yeah, I read a quote once that said, it was like a scholar who said, I found that when I indulged in my desires for food, so ate whatever I fancied, I would sin more, because it said that fulfilling one desire can lead to more easily fulfilling other desires.
Yeah.
And I found that so profound, because in essence, or by default, eating isn't haram, right?
No.
By default. And so to know that you could even kind of be tricked by going in through something that technically is halal, and then like you start to indulge, and anything you fancy you eat, and then before you know it, you're finding the concept of accessing your desires, you get in the flow of it. And the minute you discipline yourself for food, you actually feel stronger against other things as well.
Absolutely. I think you're just more mindful of it, right? So like back to the calorie deficit, like you know that you have this fixed limit and you don't want to go beyond that. And so you really think about everything you're eating.
Yeah.
But then if you apply that mindset to, general living and, like you said, indulging in desires and kind of sins, if you actually are mindful about it and really think about why am I doing what I'm doing, and kind of bring yourself back to where you know you need to be, then generally your self-control is a lot more, because when you act kind of rash on instinct, that's when you'll do the most damage. But when you take a second to just like kind of sit and think and just apply that logic to it, then you generally make better decisions.
It's so much easier to slip than it is to be disciplined. There's a documentary right now that's out called The World's Fattest Man 10 Years On, right? I haven't watched the whole documentary, but I was able to understand the premise of it. And so the premise is, there was this man who in 2009, he was 80 stone, or near enough 80 stone. And then by 2014, he got down to 19 stone through surgeries, and I think mainly surgeries. But anyway, he got down to 19 stone. And the documentary has been following him for the last 10 years. And guess what, bro?
I don't know, tell me.
Try and guess.
Over these 10 years, I don't know, maybe he's like, I'm going to say super disciplined in all areas of his life.
He's put it all back on.
Oh, that was absolutely wrong.
No, but like, I'm laughing at the fact that you're wrong, not at the fact that he's put it on.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, he hasn't put it all back on. He's 35 stone right now. But there's a deeper and more serious message here. He said that people talk a lot about the physical side of losing weight, but they don't talk about the mental. And he said, even though I had all the surgeries and I lost weight, I needed therapy because I had a food addiction, and also through depression he would eat, which is so understandable, bro. I comfort eat, bro. If I'm like, I've had like everybody has had stages of low mental health, like the whole world has.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think to myself, I'm not going to try and make things harder for myself. I just got to get through this rut that I'm in. And if I fancy to eating something, I'm going to eat it. And so what he said was profound, is that, and it goes to what you're saying about mindfulness and about it's all in the mind and discipline is in the mind and stuff like that, because no surgery could have fixed the challenges that he was going through in his mind. And then he ended up, he went through a breakup and stuff like that, and then he ended up putting on weight again.
Yeah. But at the same time, like you said in the house show, that kind of the last line is, if you want pizza, some days you just need to have pizza.
Yeah, it's
right?
about balance, right?
Yeah.
It's tough, man. Mind is such a powerful, is it a muscle? The brain.
What is it, a muscle? It's an organ. I don't think it's a muscle.
But it is powerful either way. It is, man. Weight loss is so fascinating as well, isn't it? Or like the changing of the body and stuff. Like to know that you're living, you have a ruh, and you're encased in a body, and it's an amana to look after the body, and it takes so much discipline to look after the body, and probably most of us are not content with how we maintain our bodies. I know I'm not. I've always struggled with that. Being like, oh yeah, I'm like achieving. I'm doing right by this amana, like to the best of my ability, and then a lot of it is in the mind, but it shows so easily.
Mm.
You have to really exercise. You have to really eat well. And then, like you said, on those one-off occasions, then you can indulge and sometimes have that pizza. But it's about 90% of the time being disciplined.
I think it all comes back to intention, right? Like, if you want to, like you say, maintain this body because you understand it's a trust that you have to return, then, you know, inshallah you'll be successful. But if it's because of, say, pressures from Instagram and seeing others and, yeah, kind of external influences, then I think, you know, it's a really tough situation. And, you know, you've seen that the reports that have come out about Instagram and the effect it has on kind of teenage girls and the mental, you know, anxiety it drives and all these kind of diseases which propagate because they spend a lot of time on Instagram, and Instagram aren't, you know, being caretakers in that sense.
Do you have Instagram?
I deleted my Instagram about 18 months ago.
And how do you feel?
I feel good. I'll be honest, Instagram wasn't that big of a, like, tool for me. Like, if I was bored, I'd go on Instagram, right? You know, like you see like, funny pictures or you see your friends' pictures and then, you know, it's just whatever. But it wasn't a tool for me to connect with people. Like, if I wanted to connect with people, I'd call them or text them. And so leaving Instagram, I'm still in touch with the people I want to be in touch with. But I feel better in the sense that when I'm in a lift or, you know, waiting in line at a coffee shop, I don't pull out my phone and just stare at my phone because I'm bored and I need, you know, a dopamine hit. I feel better in that, you know, you can have these kind of moments of silence or, you know, where your brain just switches off and you don't need to have a screen or something in front of you.
Mm.
And so for me, I think it's had, you know, really positive effect. Like, I've deleted all my social media. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those kind of
Well,
went.
you don't exist.
Just on
on
LinkedIn,
the
actually.
internet.
But I keep LinkedIn for work. I think it's quite helpful, actually.
Right.
But yeah, I only delete them. Like, I deleted them 18 months ago because it was around exam time, right? And I said, okay, I need to concentrate. And on Ramadan as well, I thought it's probably best for me to get rid of them off my phone completely. And then they just stayed off my phone.
Alhamdulillah.
And then, yeah, I think I submitted the request to Facebook to delete all my info and kind of got that removed. And yeah,
Kareem's done that, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't looked back since.
Where do you get dopamine hit from?
It's a good question. I think, you know, I do like playing sports, so I'm quite big into my cricket. I play a lot of cricket, football as well. That's definitely a big area where, you know, when I'm playing sports, generally I feel good.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in your house during the Pakistan-India game.
Oh, bro.
Was it mad?
Crazy. I was actually at my uncle's house, but the vibes, man, it was crazy. Because historically, we don't do well against India.
Yeah.
And to, like, beat them the way we did, it was crazy, man.
Yeah, like, it was obvious by, like, very early on that it looks like Pakistan are going to win this.
Yeah.
And that was the same day as the United Liverpool game, I think.
That was a very bittersweet weekend.
You United?
Yeah, so I was watching Pakistan-India with my uncle.
Man.
And then my cousin sat next to me. He turns to me and goes, oh, yeah, it's 4-0 and it's half-time. And so, yeah, I'm watching like Pakistan absolutely destroy India and Liverpool absolutely destroy United at home. But I'll take Pakistan-India over that 100%.
So, if you're United, let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
What's your opinion on Oli in versus Oli out? Did we speak about that before?
We definitely haven't.
Oh, okay.
I think when Oli came in as caretaker, he did quite well in that he changed the mood of the club, right? Because he's a legend. Like, he came in, Mourinho left a toxic atmosphere. He basically cleaned that all up. The team played somewhat well, you know, started to win matches, started to play attractive football.
What year was this?
This was 2018.
Okay.
So it's come up to like 3 years in the job now. So, yeah, I think he did a good job there. And like, he just kept winning and winning. And then he obviously got the contract extension. But I remember soon after he got the extension, he actually started losing a lot of matches. And so I was thinking, well, hold on here. Did we rush the appointment? And then over these, last few years, there's definitely been progress. I think every signing Ollie's made has been a good signing. I think he, as a manager, he's probably, very likable person, like I said, legend at the club. So I think the mood around the club is good.
But do you think that relationship works though? Because do players respect him like how you would respect like a father figure, and is that needed, especially with such big characters and such big egos? Do you think that they need someone to kind of like be a father figure as opposed to a friend?
Yeah, I think so as well. So I think because he's still so young in his managerial career, his tactics just aren't there. And so when you're kind of a nice guy and, you know, sounds mean to say it, but not good at your job, I think people do start to lose a bit of respect for you. And so it seems that he's lost a bit in the changing room, like a bit of respect, or people just aren't sure about him. But then the father figure was like Sir Alex Ferguson, right?
Yeah, and they haven't been able to replace that since he's gone.
Yeah, that was a man that was in the job for like 3 decades, and he built up, this legacy. And then since then, the club's just been on a just downward spiral, I think.
Wouldn't David Beckham make a good narrative-wise? He would make a great Man United coach, because it's like coming back home and blah blah. But he's not a manager, is he?
No, I think Beckham is more interested in his celebrity status and that side of things. I don't think he'd ever come to.
He does own Inter Miami, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I don't think they're doing too well, actually.
Sorry?
I don't think they're doing too well in the American League.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough one, man, because it's such an interesting narrative that plays out, because it's so interesting to watch from a business level what's happening at Man United right now. You got huge names: Ronaldo, Cavani, Sancho, Rashford, Pogba, of course, and his just ace creative Varane, and then you just think like, wow, what a team! And then there's so much to like take away from it. Like, you could go into little pockets and speak for hours. Like Sancho's situation, the guy was a beast at Dortmund.
Yeah,
he's come here, and I feel really sorry for him, because he got a start for the first whatever, like 7-8 matches, and so you could say he's had his opportunity to prove himself, so he only deserves the bench now. But I disagree, because he's come from a completely different league, which is a completely different style of play. And then I think in some ways it's a bit unfair that he's come into a team that has got just so many big characters and names that you, in order to shine, have to you're almost fighting for your spot, because football is the most individual team sport that exists. And
yeah, so
then you're thinking, I just feel like give Sancho a chance, man. Then he's got benched, and now he's not been picked for England. Have you seen that?
I didn't actually see.
Yeah, he just, for the next international break, he didn't get picked. I thought, man, that's sad.
No, I agree. Like, we chased Sancho for over a year. We got him at the club, and now we're not even playing him.
It's sad, man. Yeah. And I don't think he deserves to lose his England spot either, because he never got field time with England. The whole Euros, he hardly got to play.
Yeah, the Euros was an interesting time. I thought, obviously England did well, got to the final, but I thought Southgate's managerial selections were interesting.
Yeah, I've heard people saying they don't like his managerial selections, because he was kind of spoken about a bit for the United position for a minute.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was his name was whispered a bit. It didn't get past a whisper. But do you think that Oli will be out?
I think he will get sacked
after this Saturday.
Not after this Saturday. No, I think most likely what happens is they'll probably give him to the end of the season. Whatever happens. If we finish, outside the top 4, don't win a trophy, and then they'll just, say, sorry, but we want to take this a different way.
Yeah,
and I think Oli will leave.
Even we just spoke about Sancho. Even Lingard, same situation, bro. Like, the guy was smashing it for West Ham.
Yeah,
and even when he has played for United this season, he's been decent.
Good.
Yeah,
he's been good.
So, but then again, how do you pick those teams when you got such big names and stuff? There's not enough space.
You don't leave out Ronaldo.
Yeah,
so that's one spot that's already taken.
Yeah, of course. He had a good partnership with Cavani as well that day that they started.
They did, yeah. I mean, Tottenham are absolutely awful.
Yeah.
So let's not say United were brilliant. They just played, I think, a worse team. The big test will be this Saturday against Man City, because City are coming off a loss against Palace. They'll want to win. And if we have a situation like we had at Liverpool, it could be a very, very long afternoon.
Is it home or away?
I can't remember.
I think it's home.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool lost to Brighton recently.
They drew 2-2.
Oh, okay.
But Brighton played very well that game.
Yeah.
Very, very well.
It's an interesting time, isn't it, bro? This whole Newcastle situation with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean, they could honestly be the next like Man City with all the money kind of pumping in. And
Emery turned the spot down.
oh, he turned it down.
Yeah,
right.
And it looks like they've got they after some guy called Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
Who's he?
He's the former Bournemouth manager. He's a kind of young British manager. He did quite well with Bournemouth. So,
but then he got sacked when they got relegated.
I think, yeah, he did. Yeah.
Fine. Hey, we could talk about this all day. Abdullah, thank you so much for your time. No, we appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. I really wanted to kind of have that conversation about climate change, just understand it, and hopefully, maybe like if one person understands it a bit better, like how I did, it would be of benefit. So thank you, and thank you for the general now. Thank you for always being part of Freshly Grounded's events. I genuinely like when I saw you at the house show, it just, you know, my face lit up. I was really happy to see you, and the fact that the way you carry yourself at these events and stuff, it's a true representation of Freshly Grounded. So I really appreciate that, and I hope that, you know, you're going to be around for as long as Freshly Grounded is around, and hopefully one day we can buy you out of your contract as well.
Inshallah,
Thank you,
man.
bro. Thank you so much.